Hello, my name is Connie, and this is my interview with a professional in the field of healthcare human resources. For my interview, I interviewed Karen Siedenberg. She's the Senior Human Resource Manager at Rocky Mountain Cancer Centers. I'm currently employed there as a medical laboratory technician. Just a little bit about Rocky Mountain Cancer Center. It's Colorado's largest provider of cancer care with 56 positions. It's a part of the U.S. Oncology Network, which has cancer centers spread all over the United States. U.S. Oncology is owned by McKesson Corporation. Karen is the Senior Human Resource Manager for 18 of the locations that are spread throughout the Denver area. Some of her duties are planning and implementing and evaluating employee relationships and human resource policies. Some of these policies we are learning about in this course, programs and practices. She also ensures legal compliance by monitoring and implementing applicable human resources, federal and state requirements. So she doesn't have to just deal with federal requirements. She also has to deal with the laws and regulations that are put out by the state as well. Implements employee benefits program. This is very important to make sure that employees get the benefits that they signed up for that are maybe in their contract. There's a complete list of her responsibilities can be found at the website below. This is an actual job description of a human resource manager. As you can tell, if you take a look at this link, there's a whole lot of duties or responsibilities of a human resource manager. They have a lot of things that they have to know, and they have to be abreast of anything new that comes up. In my interview, I asked Karen 3 questions. One was about healthcare reform, and the other 2 were about employment law. My first question to Karen was, what has been the most significant effect of healthcare reform on specialty areas of medicine such as oncology? As a human resource manager, Karen didn't feel that she was best qualified to answer the question, but she did respond with this answer. This is more of a financial or clinical question, but I would have to say accessibility to specialty care. As more healthcare reform takes place, more people have access to care, including specialty care such as cancer treatment. We are seeing a regular increase in the amount of patients we serve on a regular basis. Note at the bottom of this slide, it says, as legislative and demographic changes trickle down into care facilities, the use of hospital services is expected to grow significantly between 2017 and 2025. So basically what this is saying is that hospitals are not just going to be used as ERs. A lot of times that's the only part of the hospital many people see. They only go to the hospital in case there's an emergency, but there'll be more visits to the specialty clinics throughout the hospital as legislative changes come down to different hospitals. Many of these acts that have been put into place, most especially the Affordable Care Act, have implemented more affordable care and opened up areas of care or specialty care that may not have been available to individuals who didn't have insurance before. Employment law is the area that Karen deals with the most on a daily basis in her job as a HR manager. So the next question that I asked her was, what do you think is the most important employment law and why? This is how Karen answered this question on employment law. They are all important. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, EEOC, Family and Medical Leave Act, FMLA, Fair Labor Standards Act, FLASA. Each employment law protects the employee and ensures that the employer is treating them fairly with regards to pay for time worked to include overtime, if applicable. Time off to care for self, parent, child, or spouse under FMLA, and to ensure that no employment actions are taken against them for discriminatory reasons under the EEOC. After doing a little bit more research, I researched the Civil Rights Act of 1664. This appears to be the act that had the most or the greatest impact on employment law because it addressed so many different areas such as race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. And here you'll see it required equal access to top public places also and employment, and enforced desegregation of schools and the right to vote. This act has had revisions since the time it was implemented in 1964, but it seems to have the most significant effect on anything to do with discriminatory issues in the workplace. The last question that I asked Karen was also about employment law. The question was, which law has the greatest impact on this organization if not followed? When answering this question, it's important to remember that Karen answered it based off of her experiences at her current organization, which is Rocky Mountain Cancer Centers. She said, I would say wage and hour under the FLSA. I always tell employees during orientation that they must clock in and out while working, and they absolutely cannot work off the clock. I always say I have a lot of things on my bucket list, but an audit from the Department of Labor is not one of them. If an employee was to claim that he or she wasn't paid for time worked, it could open us up to an audit from the DOL. They would come in and audit our payroll and employee records. While we do everything by the book, there is nothing to say that they won't find something which could result in back pay and penalties. After speaking with her too, she said this seems to be the biggest issue, like I said, for this organization. Just you would think something such as a simple task as making sure that people clock in and clock out on time, that it's not that big of a deal. But I know from experience that this is something that is very important. They want to make sure that employees can't go back and claim that they didn't get paid for work that they actually do. So they stay on top of this. And this is what was most important, or what stood out the most for Karen. In conclusion, I think that the topic of session 3 sums up the role of the human resource manager as a whole. It says there are many regulations that a healthcare organization must comply with on a daily basis. These laws cannot be implemented and enforced if the healthcare managers are not aware of them and are not consistently applying them across the healthcare organization. Of course, when Karen answered my questions, she answered them based on her job as a human resource manager in a healthcare facility that's main goal or main job is to take care of cancer patients. It depended on what organization you go to, their focus may be something different. But the foundation for it all, if you look at like the job description for a human resource manager, they have to know employment law most specifically. I think that's the common factor between all human resources manager is the employment law. Then when you get into the realm of healthcare, then you have to go into healthcare reform acts, and those are things that any human resource manager needs to be aware of and need to keep up with. Human resource managers may not have all the answers, but this is important that they know where to find them. They must be able to provide the most up-to-date information to their employees. A lot of times employees want to say that they didn't get the information, and they need to be able to track. Human resource managers need to be able to know that they put that information out there. A lot of times they will have employees trained on some types of information. They'll send out training in the way that they can go back and know that these employees have been notified about any additional information. They might have a email response, read response, or they can have them do some type of training and be able to track that in case the Department of Labor, like Karen said, comes in and does an audit. The Department of Labor can do audits at any time, and they can do it on just about anything that falls under their realm. So it doesn't just specifically have to do with your wages or earnings. It can be anything that falls under their department.